And we're going to be having a bit of a chinwag about that. For Taking Stock tonight, we have Angela Vathulkas, founder of the Small Business Party of Australia, and Greg Baxter, one of Australia's leading communications experts, in the studio. Thank you so much. Are we on the bandwagon? The Royals are going to be here for quite a while, but geez, we're all loving it, aren't we, Angela?
I'm very excited. I'm expecting something like fig and pecan bread soon as well.
Yeah, of course.
Very excited.
Greg?
It's got it all. Children, cakes, rain,
Pregnancies.
farmers, pregnancies.
We just need a pet.
Yeah, they should have brought the pet dog, that's
References
true.
to Salt of the Earth, that helps too.
It's the Royal Tour from Central Casting.
It does, it's funny because it's felt for weeks, I don't know, months, like the very fabric of Australia has just been deteriorating, and suddenly we have this 2 weeks where the whole nation just, it's very hard to not be a part of this, isn't it?
We had a royal wedding a few days ago and another royal couple coming out here. It's just lovely.
I know, I think it works for sentiment right now. Do you think, Greg?
Absolutely. I think they've captivated the imagination of the people, and you know, we've got another 15 or 14 days to go, so...
Can they keep it up?
Oh, sure.
And they're here for a great cause, the Invictus Games, which is even better. It's not just them touring, it's here for a great cause.
Dubbo, though, has been visited by the Royals, I'm told, 6 times since the 1920s. They just keep coming back. They love the people. They love the place.
Great steaks in Dubbo.
Great steaks. Look, it's a wonderful place, no question. But are there other small towns that are kind of putting their hand up and going, hey, Harry, Meghan, we're over here. Why Dubbo? Why do you think?
I honestly have no idea, but having been to Dubbo, I can see the appeal. You know,
it's a great small business hub. There are a lot of good small businesses in Dubbo. They've got a great chamber there. They're really integrated. They're a great community. They look after each other, and it's very centrally located. So they've got a lot of pluses besides the food as well. So I think that's a community that deserves it because it often gets forgotten in terms of an economic hub. So I think, there you go, that's the reason why the Royals went there. They know.
And when you saw the reaction today, why wouldn't you keep going back to a place like that?
Oh, exactly. Everyone just knows to flock to Dubbo the minute you hear. You've got to start booking out early. There's no hotels in town, apparently, with any rooms left. Speaking of being a business hub, there was an interesting ranking that was put out today, globally, really, talking about Australia as a place to build a business, number 15 on the global list. So in terms of a business environment and innovation, should we be happy with 15? US was number 1. We talked about the details at the start of the show. Are we happy with that?
Not particularly. I think you'd always want to be aiming for the top 10 in any of these sort of global rankings. I mean, Australia prides itself, I think, on punching above its weight across a whole range of sort of dimensions. This is probably as important as any of them.
Yeah, we didn't beat New Zealand, unfortunately,
no,
which really hurts, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, the Kiwi, I've spent a lot of time working with New Zealand businesses over many years, and they've always struck me as being particularly smart and clever and innovative because they've had to be. They've had to be as a very small nation, and we can learn a lot from them. You know, I think...
You're saying that out loud, right?
Yeah. Well, innovation, I think, is the key to not ending up with a commoditised economy where you are just always competing for price.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And that flows right through the economy in terms of employment conditions and wages and salaries and the standard of living that we all want to enjoy. So 15 is not a bad score, but we should always be aiming for higher than that, particularly when you're looking at a measure of innovation and competitiveness.
So where do we go wrong?
We were lucky. I think we were lucky with 15.
Do you? You think we should be way worse than that?
I think when you pull apart the report, all 671 pages, the way that we've been measured in the benchmarking, there's 40 years of benchmarking levers that this report has really got its origins in. And the way they measure different things, I mean, Sweden is renowned for having the most tech-savvy people. And then you've got Switzerland, who have labour policies where they reskill and retrain their people in phenomenal ways. So all the countries, I think there's about 140 here, have outstanding components. But we've also got countries here that have a really poorly scoring and really great scoring in different regions. So Europe's got measurements where they've got countries like Germany that are right up there, top 1 and 2, and then other countries within Europe that have performed quite badly. So this is about the global economy now coming together and highlighting things. And Australia's score here in 15 is really good, except for the fact that Iceland is at 11. They only have 320,000 population. Almost all of them live in their main city. And they beat us senseless. So I'm a little bit more worried about that competition than New Zealand when you consider how many millions of people we've got.
Well, you deal with small business in Australia a lot, so you would see the start-up and the starting a business narrative often. So what do we need to do better?
Normally I'm quite alarmed because we lose a lot of our talent. A lot of our talent goes overseas. But when I read this report, I thought what fascinated me the most is that where we do well is that we punch above our weight because we don't have a big population. We're quite isolated. We do lose our talent, but at some point they do come back. But we've learnt a lot about innovation here. What goes against us is government policy because we're clunky and slow to move and adjust, especially in industries that are disruptors. So government has a role to play in providing good safety nets and freeing up red tape and making it cheaper to do business. Quite often a small business wants to start up and they've got 360 forms to fill out just to get through some regulation. It can take a year to open a business. If that doesn't stranglehold you, I don't know what does.
So true.
And I suppose the problem there is that you end up losing your best talent in Australia to places like the US and Europe. So the question
and New Zealand.
And New Zealand even. There you go. Exactly. So how do you incentivise people to stay when they've got a great idea?
Cut the red tape. I mean, I totally agree with Angela. We've got 3 levels of government. Bureaucracy has gone mad. We've got a tax legislation that you can't actually climb over because there's so many pages in it. Our economy is all the regulations are far too complicated. And talking to people who want to start, businesses in the food and beverage sector, hotels or bars or whatever, or cafes.
Don't do it.
They'll tell you that you need an enormous amount of money and courage because before you even get to earn your first dollar, you've had to jump through so many hoops, and all the hoops are expensive.
Yep.
Speaking of a once startup, which is now worth something like 150 bajillion trillion. I think
that's a proper number, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is a business show after all. No, Jeff Bezos is worth $150 billion now on the back of Amazon, which is now going into the food and grocery space here in Australia. Now, they came to Australia 12 months ago. So the question is this kind of a slow-moving takeover, or is this what we expected from Amazon?
I think they're playing it a little bit safe in making sure their infrastructure's in place because their edge is supposed to be customer service. So they want to make sure that they can get the deliveries out. I was very unimpressed with the site, though, and the products, I have to say, with the groceries, because I do shop online for food and groceries a lot, and I was pleasantly disappointed in a happy way because I thought, I'll have to change how I normally do my shopping. But they don't have a good range yet, so they're still slow on their range. They seem to obviously have favoured certain products and certain lines and brands only, and the consumer likes variety. So while Coles and Woolies need to be worried because it is Amazon after all, right now they have an advantage. So I hope they wake up and make my shopping online experience a little bit better. I'd like it to be a little bit more VR than the way it is. It's a bit flat, one-dimensional for me at the moment. It's a bit scary.
It's a big strategy from them, though, isn't it? Yeah.
I've thought about it in quite a different way. I think it's not a particularly good development for Australian business, and I'm not even sure if it's a particularly good development for Australia. I mean, this is a company which pays notoriously low rates of tax.
Or none.
Or none. And so that gives them an immediate competitive advantage against Australian companies that are paying the full corporate rate of tax, be they large businesses or small. That's a disadvantage for our businesses that we just have to negate by getting these sorts of companies to pay the proper rate of tax.
Well, the consumers listening to you say, but hang on, we're going to get cheaper prices.
Well,
that's great.
Yes.
They're not cheaper prices, though. Their Amazon prices were actually
But I'm thinking of Aldi
Aldi
has helped to make grocery prices a lot cheaper compared to what we have. Then
cheaper
we've got Kaufland, we've got Amazon Australia. The only outcome I can see is that we get cheaper prices.
You will get cheaper prices, and there will be a price to pay for that, because the cheaper prices will come at the expense of farmers. As we've already seen this in grocery retailing in Australia.
Our own supplies, our own local economy.
Yeah, so the advantage, $1 milk, consumers love it. It's not very good for farmers. And I think we're now seeing a shift back to people saying, well, we might have to pay a little bit more for our milk in order to give the farmers a fair go. Amazon's not going to be interested in giving farmers a fair go. I don't believe. So cheaper groceries, sure, but the suppliers will be under a lot of pressure from Amazon to supply products at the very, very lowest cost.
Race to the bottom.
It's a race to the bottom. And then I think there's all the people that will work for Amazon. I mean, there was a horrifying piece in the Sydney Morning Herald about 3 or 4 weeks ago that looked at all of the labour force in their distribution centres that are on these sort of perpetually casual contracts, where you don't know if you're going to get 1 shift or 5 shifts in a week. You have no security, you don't get any sick leave, you don't get a whole bunch of the other benefits that full-time employees would normally get. I'm not sure that's the kind of workforce we want to keep building in this country. And I know that sounds all very harsh, but that's on balance. I think we should be quite troubled by these kinds of developments.
Well, this is the role that government has to play in making sure that the safety net is there for our own local economies and our own businesses. So, again, we hope that government.
What can they do, though? I mean, Amazon's coming. It's like this.
Well, it's all about
Godzilla about tromping around.
The labour policies for people to protect our people are very important, and they need to be fair and reasonable so that we've got a fair marketplace, so we've all got the same opportunities. And I mean, even as a business owner, it's often difficult to say that, but it's really important that it's a fair, competitive market, not an unfair.
Yeah, the tools are there. I mean, labour policy, as you said, competition policy. I mean, we have a competition regulator to make sure that there's no such, you know, that we avoid things like predatory pricing and monopolistic power and so on and so forth. So we've got the tools, but we have to use them.
We have just a little bit of time left, but I wanted to talk about, speaking of labour policies and the like, we had Guy Debelle of the RBA come out today and say that we better get used to low wages growth because it's going to be here for a while. And one of the things that he mentioned was that non-salary incentives to keep people at the employer are a real thing now. So we're talking about gym memberships or, you know, a car park or something where they don't actually have to increase the wage. So, I mean, what do you think about that?
Employees love having a great culture at work. So having flexible hours, being able to work from home, you know, maybe the gym membership, as you said, creche facilities or good parental leave situation often helps keep employees happy. But I still suspect at the end of the day, more money in your pocket is always going to win overall. I mean, we want a good place to work, you want to be able to be productive, but you still want to be able to feel you're sharing in the prosperity of that company. So I think it's great to have incentives that aren't necessarily financial. That might work for smaller companies. It's not going to wash for big companies.
They're really stringing us out at this point, aren't they?
Show me the money. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, if anyone offered me a gym membership, no thank you. No thanks.
I think he also said that we were experiencing the longest period of, in effect, declining living standards in the last 25 years. We've had about 6 years of wages growth effectively, you know, going backwards, living standards going backwards. We've just done a huge national survey of, you know, the most pressing issues in the community, and the clear number one issue is the cost of living, and that's not solved by non-cash incentives in the workplace. It's solved by money.
No,
it's solved by wages growth. And Debelle did say that he thought there was, to Angela's point, a need for more wages growth so that workers start to feel like they're sharing in the prosperity that the big companies are clearly reporting every day during profit season.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, gym membership's certainly not going to help the economy out, but wages increasing might. Greg Baxter, Angela Vathulkas, thank you very much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you,